Okay, this is part one of the road trip spreadsheet. First thing that you'll need to do is make a copy of the template. So if you haven't already done that, you'll need to go to the assignment and click that link, and it'll force you to make a copy. And it should look something like this. So you'll be creating a log of a dream road trip. So you get to decide what your stops will be. You have to have at least 10 stops. You're starting at Milan High School and you'll end at Milan High School. So you'll make a complete circle. And you also have to choose what your road trip vehicle of choice will be. So you're going to have your destination, like each of your stops listed here in column B, numbered 1 through 10. Column C, you're going to have the miles traveled in between each stop, so from stop 1 to stop 2 and 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. Column D is going to be your trip odometer, so like a running total of the miles traveled. Column E is going to be the gallons of fuel that you use for between each stop. Column F is going to be the local gas price of that stop. Column G is how much it's going to cost you to fill up based on how many gallons you need to fill up your tank and what the price of gas is locally, and then you'll calculate the cost per mile for each stop as well. You'll notice that columns D, E, G, and H are shaded blue. You will have formulas in those columns, and the ones that are white are just data entry, and then you'll have a few formulas down here as well. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is decide what sort of vehicle you want to take on your road trip. So it's always been my dream to have a Jeep Wrangler, so that's what I went with. So you can just Google a few things that you need to know. So I'm going to put your vehicle of choice right here in B4, and then you'll have to Google to figure out what your highway gas mileage would be, miles per gallon, and then also what the tank size would be. So I just have my little Jeep Wrangler here, and then this is my highway. Oh, is that the right one? Let's see. Yeah, I'll have to change this to 25. I found a couple of different places. And then the tank size, where did I find that? Right here. 17.5. So I'll have to change that. That's a different example that I had earlier. So do that first and foremost because you'll need those numbers going forward. So for my road trip, I have decided to do a tour of our beautiful country's national parks. So my first stop after Milan High School is going to be Shenandoah National Park. So you can decide what your first stop is going to be. This video is just going to show the first stop and the formulas that you'll need for that, and maybe I'll do the second stop too, just to show you what that looks like, and then you'll be responsible for filling in the rest of your stops on your own, and then I'll show you in the next video how to calculate these last couple of things. So what you're going to do is you'll go to Google Maps. I'm going to search Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to get directions. I want my starting point to be Milan High School, Big Red Drive. And let's see. So right here it says it's going to be 477 miles. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet and oops, make sure I spell it right. Let me copy and paste. Awesome. So there's my first stop. My miles traveled will be 477. And this is where we have our first formula. So the trip odometer is just going to be, like I said, a running total of how many miles have been traveled. So it's going to be the cell that you're in, or excuse me, the miles traveled plus whatever the odometer was before that. So this is going to be equals, and then this miles traveled plus what the odometer was reading before we left. So 0 because that was our starting point. So nothing super fancy there because we're adding 477 to 0. So for our gallons of fuel used, we know our gas mileage. So for me it's 25 miles per gallon. And then I know how far I traveled, 477 miles, so I can do a little bit of dimensional analysis. So if you remember from your chemistry and physics days, we are going to divide our miles traveled by our gas mileage. So we're going to put for that equals our miles traveled, so D11 divided, divided, oh heavens, what happened? Undo. Okay, divided by, did it again, divided by our gas mileage. Enter. So I used 19.08 gallons of fuel. If you get a bunch, like a huge long decimal here, you can change the decimal places using the toolbar up here. So if you want to increase the, or excuse me, decrease the decimal places, you can click that, or you can click this one here on the right and increase the decimal places. So I would recommend just rounding to the nearest hundredth, so having 2 decimal places. Okay, so now we need to find the local gas price so we know how much it's going to cost to fill up our tank there. So I recommend just going to gasbuddy.com, and you can put in the zip code right here and it will give you the gas price for where you are stopping. Let's see, does it have... Does not have an actual address. I wonder if I put in this. Wonderful. Okay, so hopefully it'll give me some prices here. Loading. Okay, so we're going to go with $2.39 just because that's the first one that popped up. So my local gas price, $2.39. And you should have currency formatting here. So when I typed it in, you notice that it put in a $sign and decimal places. And so then my cost to fill up is going to be the price per gallon multiplied by the number of gallons that I used up, because in order to fill my tank back up, I'd have to put that much in the tank to fill up. So that's going to be equals my price per gallon times the number of gallons that I used. So F11 times E11, enter. So this should also have currency formatting. And then my cost per mile is going to be what it cost me to fill up divided by the miles that I traveled. So equals my cost to fill up divided by miles traveled, and enter. So that is everything for your first stop. And we'll go ahead and do the second stop as well, and then from there it'll just be doing the same thing for your remaining 8 stops. So I have to double check, where did I go next? Everglades National Park. Alright, so now I'm going to go to my map and I'll do National Park. So make sure that your one of your destinations is your first stop, and then your other destination, it doesn't really matter the order, you're just looking for the total miles. So 990 miles. Okay, so miles traveled, 990. So now my trip odometer is going to be my 990 plus 477. So equals 990 plus whatever my odometer was before. And then my gallons of fuel used is going to be my miles traveled divided by my gas mileage. So equals 990 divided by my MPGs. And I'm going to find my local, copy and paste this into my gas buddy to find my local gas price. Boop, boop. And I will just go, let's see, does this have okay, I will just go with the state average. So my average price right here is what I'm going to put in, 2423. Okay, and then my cost to fill up, remember, is going to be my price per gallon multiplied by the number of gallons that I need to put back into my tank, so the same as the number of gallons used. So equals my local gas price multiplied by the number of gallons used. And then my cost per mile is going to be how much it cost me to fill up divided by the miles traveled. So equals G12 divided by C12. Okay. 10 cents a gallon again. Or 10 cents a mile, excuse me. Alright, so you should at this point be able to fill in the rest of these. You may find that you, between stops, your, how do I want to say this? Your gas tank won't be big enough from like one stop to the next, and that's okay for right now. In part 2 of this spreadsheet, we're gonna do a little something that'll point out like where you may have to make additional stops between like your destinations to stop for gas. So for now, don't worry. Don't be like, oh, Mrs. Streeter, like I'm traveling billions of miles. I would have to stop between here to get gas. So don't worry about that. Just figure out these things right now, and then we'll do something next week that will point out where we need to stop for gas in between our stops. Okay, hopefully you have finished filling in the remaining stops. So you have 10 stops total and you've ended at Milan High School. So we are just going to use some spreadsheet formulas to calculate these last few things down here. So our total distance traveled is hopefully going to match up with our trip odometer at the end. So this is what's being displayed on our vehicle. So we're going to sum up our miles traveled here. So we're going to have a sum formula equals sum, let's see, C10 through C19. And our numbers match, so that is good. And then a total cost is going to be a sum of what we spent on gas at each stop. So equals sum G11 through G19. And then we're going to use that. Oh, you should have currency formatting here in B22. And then we're going to use those totals to figure out what our cost per mile was for the entire trip. So equals B22 divided by the 21. So our total cost divided by the total distance traveled, and 12 cents per mile. And then just for funsies, we are also going to calculate the total gallons of gas used. So that's also another sum formula, equals sum, oopsie daisies, sum, oopsies, sum of our gallons used here, column E, bonk, enter, and there we go. And that is all of part 1 for the road trip spreadsheet. Starting next week, you'll add a few more tabs down here at the bottom and have a few more things to do for next week's assignment.